Two balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. It's his way back. Walk him off. Chris Taylor.
Hi, everyone, and welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com. My name is Matthew Moreno, and joining me tonight for our second show of the day is Blake Williams, who had an early morning at the stadium, a long day there, and then made his way home. Blake, hopefully you didn't have to deal with too much gloating from your dad.
No, I mean, it helped that the Dodgers kind of blew out the Mets yesterday, so it's kind of evened out so far for both sides here. I just wish the games were a little more exciting because they've been kind of blowouts both ways without any real like playoff feel to them. So it's been an interesting series so far, and hopefully we do get some more exciting games.
Yeah, that's funny. I mentioned that same thing to my wife yesterday, and then again, and I repeated it again today. Was that yesterday's game, as much as the Dodgers, the fans, I think obviously enjoyed the Dodgers kind of cruising to a win. It was a little bit boring, and then same thing today. Even though there was a little bit of life, some moments here and there where the Dodgers, kind of started to climb back into things, but they just couldn't get that one big hit. And even their scoring did, as you pointed out, as it was happening, did come in large part because of the Mets not being able to field the ball. And we'll get into some of that. Obviously, I think the big focus is going to be the bullpen game strategy and how the Dodgers approached it today and how different it was compared to what we saw in Game 4 against the Padres. I know there's a lot of frustration with Dave Roberts. I do see Jonathan Montgomery saying 2 post-game shows. Yes, we wanted to do one right after the game ended, and of course it was an early afternoon start, and so we did that one. We had a good crowd. I know a lot of you guys were fired up and wanted to discuss Dave Roberts. But if you happen to have missed that show with Jeff and Anthony, Blake and I wanted to be here for you guys tonight, a little bit more of a normal time when maybe people are back at home. And Jonathan, I didn't think you were complaining. I know you were just asking, and I'm seeing a lot of people who are in here with Jeff and Anthony earlier today, and a lot of our regulars anyway. So thank you if you're tuning in on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. If you are here on YouTube, please, and I do see a super chat just came in. Jose, we'll get to that in a second. Please be sure to hit the like button on this video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell, all that good stuff. That way, whenever we put up new videos, whether we're going live, you'll be notified. And we do have a bunch of pre-game, post-game interviews from the clubhouse, from the interview room uploaded on our channel. So definitely check those out. Before we get into everything, let's get to this super chat from Jose. It says, I've loved Knack, but the dude proved me so wrong in the worst way possible. I was like, dude, you're embarrassing me in front of the Dodger heads, and then a couple crying emojis. Yeah, Landon Knack I feel like he's a little bit of a lightning rod today. And, overall, he's had, I think, a good year, all things considered. It's been fine. I was surprised by the approach that the Dodgers took with the bullpen game, and not so much as it involved Knack, like not just that they trusted him or were looking to get bulk innings out of him. Because I assumed, and you can correct it, if you had a different outlook heading into this game, then please tell me. But based on Jack Flaherty giving the Dodgers 7 innings in Game 1, Daniel Hudson pitching just 1 inning, Ben Kasparius finishing that game out, and then Dave Roberts saying, yes, we're going to do a bullpen game in Game 2. My assumption, and this is why you shouldn't assume, was that it was going to basically mirror what we saw against the Padres, where, you push a couple relievers here and there to get 1+ innings, and then everybody else is more or less 1 inning each type thing. Before Game 2, when Dave Roberts was asked about the strategy, if he was going to have a bulk guy, if their Dodgers were going to follow that same approach from the Padres series, he said, no, like we will look to Landon Knack to get the majority of the outs type thing. And so, multiple innings. I think they wanted 3, maybe even 4 from him if things would have gone well. Before we really get into how the game unfolded, did that surprise you? And I know some of it probably hinges on Daniel Hudson, which we'll get to, but did that kind of surprise you that they went with this different approach?
Yes and no. I was surprised that after yesterday's game, when Flaherty threw his gem and they saved all their relievers, I thought today they would definitely go for the throat, try and go up 2-0 and use all their best relievers. Before the series, I think it was the workout day before that, Dave Roberts was talking about how they need to get innings from guys who they didn't rely on in the NLDS, which meant Landon Knack, Edgardo Henriquez, and Ben Kasparius probably, because you can't go 7 games without using other guys than the 6 bullpen guys and 2 starters that you feel comfortable with. So I knew it would come at some point that they'd have to rely on Knack in a game. I was just surprised it happened today before an off day when the bullpen was rested really well, because they didn't pitch the day before Sunday's game either. So that was 2 days off for them. It's not like it was one day after they pitched 3 consecutive games or something. So they were in a good spot to use all their high leverage guys. And I know they still would have needed to get some outs from other pitchers that weren't their 6 high leverage guys. But like we talked about a lot in our chat, we kind of trusted Honeywell more than Knack, and potentially Edgardo Henriquez more than him. So it was an interesting decision and one that I don't really agree with. But I get that at some point in the series, they were going to need to use Knack regardless.
Yeah, and I agree with that sentiment. I do wonder, though, so going back to game 1, at the time, it didn't necessarily strike me as all that odd or curious, but I think if you're using Hudson for the 7th and then Kasparius in the 8th, like if the plan was that you needed multiple innings from somebody today, I sort of wonder, why didn't you maybe have Edgardo, and I know Edgardo Henriquez, he pitched 2 innings anyway, so you got multiple from him, but maybe he should have pitched the 9th inning in game 1. That way you have Ben Kasparius, who can provide you a little bit more length on the off chance that maybe Landon Knack just doesn't have it. And sure enough, Landon Knack just didn't have it today, and it was evident from the moment he came in. And so that's where, like, I think, and maybe I'm a little off, like, hindsight is obviously a little bit 2020 in that regard from my standpoint. But if you're Dave Roberts, Andrew Friedman, the front office, the Dodgers game planning, all the coaches, they go into game 1, like they went into game 1 saying, we need to see how this goes. Like, you have a plan of how you hope things unfold, right? And it could not have gone any better, short of, I guess, Flaherty, being efficient enough to get through a complete game, but you're not going to hold that against him by any means. So I sort of felt like, if you knew going into the bullpen game today that it was going to be more of, we need a bulk guy, as opposed to what we saw again against the Padres, where it was kind of 1 inning, 4 or 5 outs from a few guys. Like, why not save Ben Kasparius for today, where if Landon Knack is struggling, because Dave Roberts was asked that, it was clear that Knack didn't have it in the 2nd inning. Why didn't you remove him? And he said, we still needed to get those outs. We wouldn't have had enough pitchers if I made a change at that point.
Yeah, I don't agree with that sentiment from him. Like, they didn't use any of their leverage guys today. They had guys who could come in and get outs. Part of me was wondering if it was kind of based on, like, inning to inning. If Brazier gave up the run in the 1st inning and then the Dodgers were trailing, so they went to Knack. I'm wondering if Brazier didn't give up that run and it was tied, or the Dodgers ended up taking the lead, would they have then went to the next leverage guy and just kept playing it inning by inning? But instead, when you're trailing, you try and get the outs from Knack at that point and see what your offense does throughout the game. So maybe that was kind of their thinking there. That's the only defensible thing I have to come up with for how they managed it. But I don't know. I don't agree with Dave Roberts saying they didn't have other pitchers available, unless he knows something about 5 of their guys in the bullpen are injured or something and he's not telling us.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree. I did think that was a little curious as well. And, I part of me also wonders if was the plan for Ryan Brazier to go 4 or 5 outs instead of just the 1 inning? Because remember, against the Padres, he got 4 outs. And so, that would have helped. To your point, I don't know. Even if, the Dodgers, yes, Brazier did give up the leadoff home run, which you and I were joking about, because we had an article ready to go for the Dodgers setting a new postseason record with 34 consecutive scoreless innings. And of course, it didn't last one batter. Nomofomo was saying Brazier didn't have it either. Yeah, but he didn't either. And that's kind of the point that I'm getting to. Maybe they were expecting a little bit more from him. So that kind of threw the plan off script right away. To your point, though, yes, they were trailing, and perhaps that influence going to Landon Knack earlier rather than a high leverage guy right away. I personally, and I think this comes down to more of just a philosophy type thing, not like quote unquote right or wrong. I still would have probably gone to somebody else, I think, in that moment to try. And I know you don't believe in momentum. I know Max Muncy questioned momentum and asked what it is. But I think if you could keep the game at 1-0, like you don't necessarily know what that does. Like if it's 1-0, does Mania not pitch maybe as comfortably as he was once he was given the huge lead? Like there's the butterfly effect. There's no saying. And I'm not saying that had they gone to somebody else other than Knack in the second inning, that the game definitely unfolds differently. But it's just my belief. Like I would have tried to keep it at 1-0. And I understand under Dave's philosophy that Knack was going to have to pitch today at some point. Fine. If you get to the 4th or 5th inning and the Mets have blown it open, then guess what? Throw Landon Knack in and let him finish the game at that point.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said there about like it didn't make total sense there. I think maybe Dave Roberts was thinking if you need to get him through 2 innings, 3 innings, it's better to do it early in the game and give your offense the chance to come back. It's not something I necessarily agree with, but I think if they used up all their relievers and then Landon Knack came in for the 7th to try and get a 3-inning save and ended up blowing the game there'd be a lot of criticism around that decision too. I don't necessarily think they needed Knack today. Like I think we have this agreed on, but the Dodgers felt they did for whatever reason. I don't know that reason, and that's how it worked out. I don't agree with it. I don't think it was the right decision, but that's what they did.
Yeah. And again, like to me, if you were setting it up this way, I don't think Ben Kasparius is who I use for the 9th inning in game 1. And he wasn't available. We're going to get to Daniel Hudson. Kasparius is a starter who is a converted relief pitcher at this point. And so he's not going back to back. Like it's just out of the, like it doesn't, he could have thrown 5 pitches in game 1. The Dodgers aren't going to call on him to appear in another game today. So I go back to like Kasparius probably should not have pitched that 9th inning. Use Edgardo Henriquez. Use one like let Henriquez pitch the 8th and 9th inning last night. Let him start the 8th. See how that goes. If he can finish the game, great. If not, and you were going to use Daniel Hudson anyway, then maybe use him in the 9th inning at that point. If Henriquez gave up a run or 2 in the 8th, and you have Ben Kasparius for your length again. And for me, like it comes from the standpoint of the Dodgers. Clearly, in my opinion, went into game 2 with a plan of needing a bulk pitcher. And if that is the case, like Landon Knack, he's like I started off this show saying he's had a good year, all things considered, but there have been some bumps in the road. And so give yourself a little bit more insurance, especially as Dave Roberts sat there in his post-game press conference and said, if I took Landon Knack out too early, we weren't going to have enough pitchers to get through the game.
To be fair, on the Kasparius part of pitching yesterday, Dave Roberts said he wanted to give him like a lighter runway to make his postseason debut because he didn't end up pitching during the NLDS. So, like, if you were going to need him later in the series, probably better to get that like rookie jitters of your postseason debut out of the way in a game where you're probably not going to end up giving up the lead. I think going back to that game, his mistake was using Daniel Hudson instead of just letting Kasparius go 2 innings.
That's fair.
So Dave Roberts said he wanted to shorten the game more, which is why he used Hudson. But like Kasparius shouldn't be on the roster if you can't trust him to get 6 outs in a 6-run game. And if something does go south, then you start getting your high leverage guy up instead of getting your high leverage guy up and then going to the other guys. So I just didn't agree with a lot of that stuff there. And I think it kind of ended up hurting them more today when they did end up needing to go to Knack for so many innings because you didn't have Daniel Hudson available for your bullpen game. And yeah, it was weird decisions from a manager that had a really, really good NLDS and kind of a confusing start so far here to the NLCS.
Yeah, you make a great point about Kasparius making his postseason debut. That wasn't something that I took into account. All right, let's get to some of these super chats. I apologize for not doing it sooner. As a reminder, Blake and I will set some time aside at the end of our show to answer some questions. This one might be a lot of question and answer because there aren't a huge number of topics for us to really cover since Jeff and Anthony obviously went over some things. And I know a lot of you guys saw it, and we don't want to, as much as we're different perspectives, we don't want to completely sound like a little bit of broken record here. But if you want us to discuss a specific topic or you have a certain question and you're on YouTube, Super Chat's the way to go. We will get to them as quickly as possible, and they go up on the screen like this. This one's from Destination All. says Friedman and Roberts, and then overthinking in all caps things again for games 1 and 2. Just use your 2 best available pitchers, Flaherty and Buehler, and then all caps, period. Yeah, this was a common theme. I know we got a lot of complaints in response to tweets during the game. I got some on my personal account as, this is why the Dodgers should have used Buehler today instead of game 3 and this and that. I get it. I'm not saying that for everybody this was the case. I think some of this is stemming from frustration with how game 2 ended up unfolding, which I can understand. But regardless, whether the plan was to use Landon Knack or any other pitcher for bulk innings, or just go, kind of high leverage bullpen game, if you will, again, the way we saw against the Padres, game 2 makes the most sense for that. And the result today doesn't change that. The reason being, the Dodgers now have an off day on Tuesday to travel. They flew to New York tonight after the game. Tomorrow's an off day. They're going to have a workout at Citi Field, kind of recover, get ready for game 3. And considering the Mets won game 2, now the Dodgers and Mets are about to play 3 games in a row at Citi Field without an off day. And you don't want to be in a position where if Buehler starts today on Monday, and then you go have a bullpen game on Wednesday, your relievers are burned out with 2 more days to come. And then you're really trying to juggle your pitching decisions. And Blake, I can't imagine that today's result changes your stance on that either.
No, I think they made the right decision on the order to go with bullpen game and Buehler. I think the wrong decision came in their not using their leverage guys to actually play it as a bullpen game. They essentially tried to use Landon Knack as a starter who came in the second inning and didn't work out. If they actually went straight bullpen game, I think a lot of us would be talking about completely different results today, and we would be happy with their decision to do that. They decided to go with Buehler on the road because, like, the off days line up better. They trust Buehler more on the road with his experience and being like the big game pitcher per se. So I think they lined that up well. And then you have Yamamoto game 4. It gives you a chance to reset your bullpen there after second game. And then if you need another bullpen game, that's an option, game 6 or 7. So I think they played it right. They just didn't manage it right.
Yeah, definitely. It's not a super chat, but I see Mark Shane is asking why always having to talk about bullpen game is because starters are not good enough. I mean, they just have a ton of injuries, and that's why we are the Dodgers are in this position that they are, and we are discussing bullpen games this series and even in the playoffs last week. All right, let's get to looks like Destination All. You had 2 super chats. We appreciate those. A few of these are showing up double. Let's see here. Big Bob Johnson says, "Oh, for Ohtani, ouch. We need our guy on base manufacturing runs. How are we feeling about the big dog these playoffs?" Yeah, Blake, this Ohtani's stats, earlier in the season, it was he's not clutch. He's not hitting with runners in scoring position. And the playoffs have been a complete reversal. He's not setting the table from the leadoff spot, which we were seeing during the regular season. If he, would take his walks, he'd hit a single, quickly steal second base. All of a sudden, the Dodgers are threatening. What is there any explanation? Is it just baseball, kind of small sample size these past however many games it's been that Ohtani's sort of struggling in this way?
Yeah, I think it's a kind of a mix of things. Like, he's definitely chasing outside the zone more, but he's still, I think, 6 for 8 with runners in scoring position or on base in the postseason so far. So, like, he's coming through when they really need him to, but 0 for 19 with no one on base, it's really weird. Like, I'm not totally sure how to explain it. You think if he was if it was just based on him chasing more, then he would see struggles with runners on base too, especially because teams have been kind of pitching around him a little bit more. But if it's like an approach thing, which it probably is a little more so, it's weird that he's maybe more comfortable with runners on or something. I don't know what to really make of it. I think it's probably more randomness than anything, and I would bet on Ohtani to snap out of this and figure it out at some point soon. Maybe it is just like a little regression from the beginning of the season when he was only hitting without anyone on, and now he's only hitting with people on. I think it's just a lot of weird baseball stuff, and combined with him chasing a bit more, it's probably just coming all together at the wrong time.
Yeah, and I think some of it to, Dave Roberts sort of alluded to this. He thought, the kind of emotional aspect of facing Yu Darvish during the NLDS twice, those were 2 games. And, that's somebody that Ohtani has openly called his childhood hero and somebody he looked up to. Like those can make for some little bit of weird emotions and maybe a strange matchup on a personal level. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It certainly is interesting. And I agree with, Big Bob Johnson and a lot of our people in the commenters in the chat tonight saying that the Dodgers do need, Ohtani to also start getting on base. It can't necessarily be only situations where, you're relying on the bottom of the lineup to kind of get on ahead of him, which they have done with some frequency in the playoffs so far. So it's worked. But games like today, if it's not necessarily always happening, then the Dodgers could be in a little bit of trouble. Like a quick question. We have more super chats, but people want to know what you're drinking tonight.
It's a Coke. I needed the caffeine after today, waking up. I am not a morning person, so waking up at 7:30 or whatever to head to the stadium was not fun for me.
All right, we have some more super chats, so thank you for these guys. Let's keep going. D. Frankham says, against San Diego, the Game 4 approach was to use the bullpen as a strength. Today's approach was not leveraging the pen's strength, but from desperation. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of what, Blake and I just kind of spent the last 15 or so minutes kind of reviewing and going over. We don't necessarily agree with it. We don't necessarily understand why that was the case and not, really going for a kind of a commanding 2-0 lead. I think if the Dodgers go up 2-0, I would have felt pretty strongly about them finishing the series out at Citi Field. And now at this point, obviously, the goal is to win at least one to make sure that you don't get eliminated out there, and then you can bring it back for games 6 and 7. But you're in a scenario now where, if you don't want to come back trailing, you need to win 2 games, which makes it a little bit harder. Not impossible. Obviously, the Dodgers, as much as there is frustration and disappointment with today's loss, the Dodgers are still a talented team. Real quick, let's pause these super chats just because our good friend Bob Nightingale is here. And Blake, I know you saw him at the stadium today. He says he had the Korean chicken bucket today, and Wolf tasted like it was under the heat lamp since last night's game. Bob, what I can tell you, I don't know. I know you're not always at Dodger Stadium, especially during the long seasons. I know you pop in here and there, but what I could tell you is the secret to getting any sort of food is to pretty much go once stadium gates open, because it's never going to be any more fresh. And I have found those times that's when I've had something that I thought tasted really well compared to other instances. Blake, we're going to get into what you've had so far, so don't share it yet. We'll do that at the end. All right, let's get
Buehler,
back to
not great.
Let's get back to the super chats. Jonathan Montgomery says, I would blame Andrew Friedman before Doc. Andrew Friedman's high ceiling / high injury risk starting pitching strategy backfired, and Doc has to make do. Pepio could have started this one. The Ryan Pepio thing is another complaint that I saw a few times this afternoon. I do think there is something to this. Yes, Dave Roberts isn't to blame for the roster that he has sort of been left with. That being said, I think the Dodgers have also been hit with an excess amount of injuries especially to the not just starting rotation, but pitching staff in general. Blake, is this? I don't want to. Dodgers are in the NLCS, so I don't want to look ahead too much to the offseason and years ahead. But is there a change in strategy that Andrew Friedman maybe needs to have? It. This is something that I do agree. Like I've expressed, I don't think the Dodgers can continue to count on, hey, here are these 8 pitchers. They either are coming off a down season or a season-ending surgery, or they're injury-prone, and we need 6 out of the 8 to kind of hit, and we think that they will. Because I think that is how, in some sense, how you end up in this position. I'm using arbitrary numbers in that case. But do you think there needs to be a little bit of a shift in philosophy?
It's really hard to answer because, any pitcher can get hurt at any moment. You can go get the guy who's never missed a start, and then he makes his first start with you and he ends up missing the season. We kind of saw that with Yamamoto. He was always making his starts. He never had any injury concerns. And then his first season with the Dodgers, he misses a few months. And then on the flip side, everyone was concerned about James Paxton being injury prone and how many starts would he actually end up making. And he was the only guy for the Dodgers who didn't get hurt. So I still think you have to go with the high ceiling pitchers, but maybe not to the extent that they have. Like, I don't want to completely throw Tyler Glasnow under the bus because I did like the move a lot, and he was still their best pitcher when he was healthy. And if they had him right now at this moment, they would probably be World Series favorites easily with like no other comparisons. A lot of people pick the Padres over the Dodgers and things like that. Like, I don't think that would have happened if they had Tyler Glasnow. He was an ace for this team, and you still need guys like that. I think you just kind of have to hope maybe you get lucky and he gets hurt in June instead of August or September type thing like that, so you have more time. On the other side, like, if you want more pitchers who are going to be consistently throwing innings like that you can rely on, you're not going to get that same level of upside. You're looking at like a Landon Knack type who we're going to be upset when he allows 4 or 5 runs in a playoff start. So it's really tough to make this. I don't know what the answer is with pitchers. I think they probably need to look at their training staff and try and figure out ways to prevent injuries more, but I really don't have an answer to this because I'm not going to say go get worse players because they're going to throw 30 or 40 more innings. But at the same time, you do need those innings. So try and just develop a lot of pitchers and have a lot of depth in the system, I guess.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And I guess I should have specified that, I certainly don't think I am of the mind of collect as many good players as possible for the team as you can. And I agree, getting as much as the Glasnow Pepio comparison, like Glasnow does have more talent, more potential. Yes, there is the injury risk. I think, again, it's hard to fully fault the Dodgers this season because it's been a ridiculous amount of injuries on the pitching staff. I think maybe, I know James Paxton got hurt with the Red Sox, and so it's somewhat of a moot point. But again, had Paxton remained with the Dodgers, is he making that same play? Does he end up getting, injuring his calf the way he did? We don't know. My issue with the Glasnow trade, and again, I don't want to like Dodgers are in the NLCS, like that's what we should be focusing on. But my issue with the Glasnow trade was the Dodgers were trading from their rotation. Somebody, Pepio, who I thought was going to be in their opening day rotation as a depth piece, certainly, but I didn't agree basically going 1-for-1 because I felt like, hey, you guys, Kershaw was coming back from surgery. Buehler was coming back from surgery. Gonsolin was pretty much out for the year. So I felt like, why are you going 1-for-1 when you were going to need some of your depth? And had they been able to pull off that trade with Pepio and Pepio had stayed healthy, maybe they'd be in a little bit different position right now. To your point, pitchers get healthy. Gavin Stone made every start this year until he finally went on the injured list. And then unfortunately he wasn't able to come back from that. And so stuff certainly does happen. And I agree with you. If the Dodgers had Tyler Glasnow still, they probably wouldn't have needed 5 games to eliminate the Padres. If they had Gavin Stone, I don't necessarily know if they would have needed 5 games, and things would certainly be a lot different. But that's the beauty and pain of sports, is always kind of the what if type thing. All right, let's get through more of these super chats. Thank you guys, everybody. Thank you everybody for being in here. We're over 1,100 people on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. I know we had a big crowd this afternoon with Jeff and Anthony, so appreciate some of you guys who've joined both of those. And if you missed the first one, we're glad to be doing this one for you tonight. Matthew Martinez says, how about the top of the order 1 through 5? Bunch of offers. Also, Will Smith struggling. I don't think you play Barnes, but maybe move him down the lineup. Yeah, I mean, we got a super chat earlier about Ohtani. Obviously not great, kind of hitting with nobody on base right now. In general, he had a kind of a little bit of a down game. Mookie, did Mookie walk at some point?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think him and Teoscar worked back-to-back walks, and the Dodgers sort of had something going there. Freddie Freeman, he had a big game 1, regressed tonight. And yeah, Will Smith, I mean, what do you make of Will Smith's year, I guess, real like this has kind of just been an extension of what we saw throughout the regular season?
I have no clue what to make of it because last year, like, it was defensible. He had the broken ribs and the concussion, and like, it makes sense if those things are going to affect you down the line. This year, there's not any injuries that we know of. He seems totally fine on defense and everything. He's playing pretty much every game. He's just not hitting at all, which is not what you expect of him. I don't think the Dodgers thought of that when they gave him a 10-year contract in the offseason. Like, I don't know, but whatever's happening with him isn't working right now. I wouldn't hate if they went to Barnes for a game versus like a lefty or something just to give Smith a reset, but it's also really hard to take him out of your lineup when you know he has the power to change a game. And it was it game 4 where he hit the homer or one of them. So like, yeah, he has the power and the potential to change a game. So it's hard to take that out of the lineup, but every other time he's batting, it's pretty bad. And I don't know what to make of it because it's been going on for quite a while now and it doesn't seem related to injuries. And I don't think it's a talent issue with him because we've seen he's been really good for 5 years now or whatever it's been. So I don't know, maybe it's a mental thing, but even that I'm not really sure of because he seems like a very steady person. So maybe moving him down would help. I'm just not sure it would really change too much either.
So I was going to ask, so we did see a lineup change from the sense of Teoscar Hernandez was moved to third, Freddie Freeman dropped to the cleanup spot, but that was something that the Dodgers had started doing towards the end of the season, and Dave Roberts said they would continue to do so whenever facing a lefty. It took them, 7 playoff games before they finally saw their first left-handed starter, and so that's why that lineup change was made. Dave was asked also after the game, in light of Ohtani's struggles with the bases empty and how much he's excelling when people are on, was he thinking of giving any thought to moving Ohtani down to the lineup? So short of, I guess, maybe moving Smith around a little bit down 1 or 2 spots, you're not necessarily inclined to do too much with the lineup, Ohtani, Mookie included?
Yeah, probably not. At the same time, if you're going to move Smith down, like who do you move up? You've seen Muncy have a lot of struggles in the postseason, and I know he's had some power here and there, which we always expect from Muncy, but it was 3-4 days ago people were calling for Muncy to be benched and Kike to play. We've seen Edmonds start to pick it up recently in the last 2 games, but before that he was having a lot of struggles. Like, I know Kike is the popular answer, but he was 0 for today and left a lot of runners on base.
Yeah.
So maybe it's Kike, but even he had a bad game. I don't think Pajes is an option to move up, and he's probably not going to play a lot. Gavin Lux, we don't know where he's going to be with his injury and when he's going to play again or what's going on there. So I don't know. I don't know what to change in the lineup. And I think that's the main problem with the Dodgers right now. There's a lot of kind of unknowns and things that you don't really have an answer for when they do have a question.
Yeah, I got a little bit ahead of ourselves when I've asked you, would you do Mookie or Ohtani, make any sort of switch there? That was the subject of this super chat from Tony McCann. What about have Betts lead off and Ohtani second? That's obviously how the Dodgers spent the first 4 months of the season until Mookie suffered a left hand fracture, and then Ohtani was elevated into the leadoff spot during his absence. And obviously, Ohtani took off. The Dodgers did as well, and they sort of never looked back. I'm not making. I think I'm leaving Ohtani and Betts. I'm leaving the top 3 the way they are, basically. And I know, maybe from the standpoint of when they face left-handed pitcher, okay, Teoscar and Freddie Freeman are going to switch. That's fine. Other than that, I'm really not inclined to make any changes to the top half of the lineup, really. I think, I get the frustration and disappointment with today's loss. And, Dodgers did have a rough performance against the Padres in game 2. Short of that, their offense has looked okay for the most part. They certainly did during the regular season. And so I wouldn't really anticipate too many changes, nor would I do it. Our next super chat's from Grayson. It says, Dodgers are still lined up to win in 6 games. They will bounce back the next 2 games, probably lose game 5, but close it out at home. Not worried. Blake, I forgot, did we have you on to make a prediction for this series?
I never made my prediction official on one of the shows, but I think in the text chat I said I would have picked Dodgers in 6. Okay. So I agree. I mean, they're not in a bad spot. You could be in a lot worse position going back to New York 0-2 in the series. I think it was a missed opportunity to have a chance to go up 2-0 heading back. But I trust the Dodgers are going to win at least a game there. They could pull off 2 wins there. 3 is probably pushing it. I don't think they're going to do that. The Mets are still a good team. And then you come back home for 1 or 2 games, and I think they're in a good spot. If they don't win it, it's going to be on them, and it's not going to be because they didn't win this game 2 or anything like that. I know it's Mets home field advantage technically now with 3-2, tied at 1-1, but the Dodgers can pull off a win on the road just like the Mets pulled off a win on the road.
Yeah, and real quick, because I'm seeing some confusion in the chat, just a reminder, the NLCS format is 2-3-2. So games 3, 4, and 5 are at Citi Field. Then it's an off day, and then potential game 6, potential game 7 would both be back at Dodger Stadium. All right, let's get into kind of our next topic. We sort of touched on it a little bit, and I think it did invariably have an impact on the bullpen game. But Dave Roberts, when he was sort of discussing why he made the decisions that he did today, he mentioned kind of casually that Daniel Hudson wasn't available. And in response to kind of the comparisons to what the Dodgers did in game 4 against the Padres, Dave also said, obviously, Alex Vesia isn't on the team, and he pitched multiple innings in that game. With Hudson, there was a follow-up of, was he just not available because of usage or injury, like rest or injury type thing? And Dave didn't really get into specifics. He just said he had some things that were going on that made him not available to pitch. He also said that not pitching today, having an off day tomorrow, that the expectation was to be back for game 3. I'm skeptical just because of what we've seen from the Dodgers with injuries this year. I don't know if that means they would make a roster move. I don't really know who they would go to if they needed to make a change.
You know who they would go to. Justin Robleski. It's Zach Logue is the only guys on the 40-man.
I guess. But what I should have said is that I don't know if that's worth it. I think if Hudson isn't available for game 3 for whatever reason, I think you hold out hope that he's ready for game 4. You were at the stadium. Did you any discussion amongst media as to maybe what this could have been or what's going on?
No, not. He came in for his pregame interview in the interview room and talked about pitching yesterday and being part of the 33-inning scoreless streak, and everything seemed fine. Nothing there. Dave didn't mention anything about it either. He didn't say anything about it. So, yeah, there's nothing really to it. Just kind of surprising.
Yeah, I guess looking back on it with the information we have now, it made perfect sense that Daniel Hudson and Ben Kasparius were the 2 players that the Dodgers made available for media before the game, because neither one of them, apparently, I knew Kasparius wasn't, but Hudson wasn't going to factor into game 2 anyway. So they had not a day off, but a little bit easier in terms of preparation. They could go spend some time with Blake and the guys and answering questions, because we know how much players love to do that every day, right? They never get enough of it.
Yep, that's why they're always in the clubhouse waiting right when the doors open for media.
Yes, all the time. We have another super chat. Kevin Dodgers Guerra says, feels like 2015 all over again. What's our chances? I'm assuming he's referencing the NLDS against the Mets, which they won in 5 games, which I remember being there covering. Dodgers were eliminated on my birthday, game 5. So that was interesting. Daniel Murphy put together a crazy series, a crazy performance in that game as well. Blake, are you worried that the NLCS is a repeat of the 2015 NLDS?
No, the Mets won the first game of that series, so the Dodgers were already out to a better start there. I think with every playoff series, it's always like a 50-50 chance of who ends up winning. So you could also make the case that it feels like 1988 again for the Dodgers. Like, I think they're 2 very different teams. The Dodgers in 2015 did not have a good bullpen at all. This year, we know their bullpen's very good, so I like that big difference there. They still had their top 2 starters with Kershaw and Greinke, and now it's Flaherty and Yamamoto, which not as good, but still really good. And I think the lineup is significantly better. And we've already seen with this Dodger team a lot that they can come back and win when they're down. If they're down in the series, they can still come back like they did against the Padres. So it's one game. I don't think any of us really thought the Mets were going to be swept this series. So, like, the Dodgers were bound to lose a game and maybe 2, maybe even 3, but they can still end up winning the series regardless of that.
Nomo Fomo was asking, I think there's a typo, but he wants to know if the Dodgers clinched the NL. He says NLCS. I'm assuming he means NLDS on Blake's birthday. They sure did. So that was nice for Blake. Blake didn't have to deal with the season-ending loss on his birthday.
Yeah, last year they were eliminated by the Diamondbacks. This year they advanced, and then off day for you tomorrow.
Yeah. No, nothing at stake tomorrow. Speaking of 2015, that's a perfect segue to our next topic, which is Clayton Kershaw, who is still pitching, obviously, for the Dodgers. Not right now, of course, currently, unfortunately, because of the bone spur in his left big toe. But if you missed it, Kershaw was on with the Fox Sports guy before the game, told the crew that he's planning on coming back next season. And he, of course, Dodgers have a team option or is it player option?
Player option.
Kershaw has a player option. So I assume he's going to exercise it and be back with the team, which isn't a surprise. Even if it was a team option and Kershaw said, I want to come back, my assumption is the Dodgers would do it. Blake, so we have the starting rotation is for next year. Not that we're done with this year yet, but next season it's starting to come into shape a little bit.
Yep. Roki Sasaki, Tyler Glasnow, Jack Flaherty, Walker Buehler coming back, and Kershaw.
Okay, so out of all those guys you named, I'm setting the over-under of how many of them are Dodgers at 2.5. 3.5, actually. I'll do 3.5.
Did I even name Yamamoto in there?
You did not, but that's fine. So you named basically 3 free agents: Sasaki, Flaherty, and Buehler. Kershaw and Glasnow under contract. So over under 3.5 from all those guys you just named.
I'll take the over.
Who are the most likely? Because I think there's Buehler. I think there's some traction there to him coming back on like a 1-year sort of prove it, reset your market deal.
Everyone's mentioning Ohtani too, so didn't name him.
Well, fine. Yeah, we know him, but
Yamamoto is the most likely. Of course, he's under contract for the next decade. Kershaw probably there just because he has the player option. I think it's worth $15 million now with the escalators that he had. So pretty sure he'll probably take that rather than test the market or try and hold out or anything. If Roki Sasaki comes, I think it's like a lock he's a Dodger. It just depends on if he actually comes over from Japan. So maybe 60-40 on that one. I would probably go with like 65% Buehler's back. I'm pretty confident in that one from what he's shown and how he wants to be here. And same thing with Flaherty. Like, they need starting pitchers. I could see them paying him. Might depend on how things go and how confident they feel in the health of guys, but we talked about so much how they need 15 pitchers, so better just to sign Flaherty instead of going and trading prospects for someone at the trade deadline. So I feel good about it, but we'll see. Never know how the offseason goes.
Yeah. And hopefully that's not necessarily something we're fully diving into for quite some time. Again, we appreciate kind of the questions and stuff like that. And that was our topic. So, Kershaw returning for 2025. All right, let's get into some questions that you guys have. Just as a reminder, if you could start it with the word question in all caps. Blake and I have maybe 10, 15 minutes or so to answer these from you guys. And if we're not getting to yours, if you want to make sure that we do before we shut the stream off for tonight, super chat's the way to go. We'll kind of prioritize those because, of course, if you're spending your money, we want to make sure that it's rewarded. But don't feel obligated. We will happily answer as many of them as we can. Before we get to them, Blake, I said I was going to give you a chance to discuss your NLCS food. I'm curious to know, I saw you had the barbecue baked potato, right? I think it was called for game 1.
Yeah.
How did that go?
It was okay. It was like $27, so it's not something I'd recommend. I mean, the qualifier here is that no food at Dodger Stadium is going to be really good. Like, I'm not going to recommend any of it as food you need to go try. So, like, on the Dodger Stadium scale, it was probably like a 6 or 7. on the normal scale, that probably makes it like a 4, maybe a 5. So yeah, it needed something else. It was kind of dry, I think was the main thing I didn't like. So I kind of just ate the macaroni and cheese that was on it and the meat. But yeah, it needed something else.
Did you had the other loaded baked potato, right? I think they put carne asada in it.
Yeah, that one was a lot better.
Okay. Yeah, that one I thought was really good. So I was curious how this one would stack up to it. All right, let's get to some of the questions you have. Don Kim wants to know, would Ohtani pitch every 6 days or 5 days? I think he does 6 days schedule, right?
He
With
was
the Angels.
Well, it depends if you're asking like rest days or starting days. With the Angels, they did a 6-man rotation, so that's 5 days of rest, and that's what the Dodgers have been doing for all their pitchers this year. So I assume they'd keep that going with a 6-man rotation, which would be 5 days of rest.
Yeah. Common Sense wants to know, did anyone ask Max Muncy why he was seeing Manaea so well today? Every other lefty in the lineup struggled. We do have a Muncy post-game interview up on our YouTube channel. I don't know. I know you're kind of hopping around getting as many interviews as you can, and sometimes players talk for 10 minutes and we're not necessarily there for the entire time. Did this come up while you were there?
Not that I can recall, but I was also kind of in the back of the whole scrum there, lifting my camera over everyone. So the mic picked up the audio. I couldn't necessarily hear everything. So I don't think so, but I could be wrong.
Okay. Next super chat. So yeah, Common Sense, if you want to check out the Muncy video, what we have, that will kind of maybe hopefully have your answer. Kevin is asking for Blake's NLCS prediction. It was Dodgers in 6, right?
Right.
Okay. Rod Wilson wants to know, where were Treinen, Phillips, and Hudson? As we discussed, Dave Roberts said he revealed after game 2 that Hudson wasn't available. The expectation is he'll be back in the bullpen and able to pitch for game 3. In terms of Treinen and Phillips not getting into the game, Rod, if you weren't on with us, rewind this once we're done here to like the first 15, 20, maybe even 30 minutes. We discuss the different scenarios and why some of the decision making was what it was today. Let's see. Scooter Booter wants to know, how confident are you with Buehler? I'm assuming this is in reference to his game 3 start and not that he would resign. So looking ahead a little bit, are you think we're going to see another? Well, I guess how would you describe Buehler's start against the pot? Like good, like he got the job done. Like it's kind of hard, right? Because on one hand, he did what he could. On the other hand, it was still not a whole lot of strikeouts, and this is kind of the risk with a pitcher who's against a team that puts the ball in play. But how would you describe that start, and how confident are you in him moving forward?
I thought his start was good. I think it's always better when you get more swing and miss and strikeouts, but as we talked a lot about that, the Padres aren't a team that swings and misses a whole lot. I think Miguel Rojas's mental error on defense there really cost Buehler and kind of sent things spiraling out of control. So if that didn't happen, I think we'd be talking about how amazing Buehler was in that outing. So a lot more stuff like that he can't control that didn't happen for him. So I think he was good. My confidence moving forward, still kind of up in the air. I don't think he's going to feel pressure by the big moment and fail because of that. But if something isn't working, if his command's slightly off or something, he doesn't have the overpowering stuff to make up for that anymore. So that's where my main concern comes in. If his command is there and he's feeling good, then it could be a great outing for him. But there's a possibility it goes south fairly quickly without his elite stuff.
Yeah. Zachary is asking, how do you not pull Knack out sooner? Zachary, kind of like how I told Rod, if you just rewind to the first 20, 25 minutes or so of this show, basically Dave Roberts said if he had done something like that, the Dodgers were going to run out of available pitchers to finish the game. Blake and I sort of discussed, not if that's true or not, but our suspicions as to maybe what they could have done to sort of mediate that being the case. Eric Hernandez wants to know if the Dodgers have faced Severino lately. Is he game 3 or is Quintana game 3?
I'm not sure. I can pull that up real quick. Actually. But I pulled up Severino's stats versus the Dodgers. So
it is Severino in game 3. So Buehler and Severino. So this is perfect to sort of piggyback off of the Buehler discussion.
Yeah, so Severino last faced the Dodgers in 2023. He went 4 innings and allowed 7 runs. The qualifier here is that Severino is completely different than this Severino. He was very bad last year, and he's had a bounce back season with the Mets this year. So it's not really a comparable thing. And as we know, the Dodgers lineup is very different from what we saw last year to now. So I don't think there's a whole lot of correlation there. And the only other time he faced them was in 2016 when he went 2 innings. So there's like nothing to make of it, but they have faced him before.
We have another question from Kevin. He wants to know how many games the Dodgers win in New York. I think they win 2.
I think they'd need to win 2 for my prediction. So yeah.
So solely for the Blake victory lap, you're predicting 2.
I picked Dodgers in 5 just for vibes based. Like I had no actual like reason for it. I just said it was vibes, and that's how I'm going this one. So that's the playoffs. Like vibes can be as accurate as anything else.
Yeah, there we go. And I said there was no reason to run from the Padres in the NLDS. Like, don't try and tank. Don't try and manipulate your postseason bracket standings and this and that. And look at what happened. The Dodgers advanced. Everything was fine. I don't know what all the concern was about.
Yeah, but if the Padres and Mets played, then the Padres might have eliminated the Mets. And then the Dodgers could have eliminated the Padres in the CS, and the Dodgers would have played whoever else before that. So we don't know that they shouldn't have manipulated the bracket until it's actually over.
I mean, we still won't know, because who's to say whoever the Dodgers would have played, they wouldn't have lost to?
We don't know that, but see?
Exactly. So the baseball gods rewarded them for playing the right way, going out and winning games that they're supposed to, and just letting the chips fall where they may. All right, let's see. Let's see what other questions we have here. John wants to know, would you be in favor of keeping Ohtani as a DH versus letting him pitch and possibly re-injuring his arm? I'm assuming John is saying only have Ohtani DH. I'm fine with him, with letting Ohtani resume pitching next season. I think if he gets hurt again at that point, then you probably have a conversation of, hey, do you want to keep doing this? Does this make the most sense? But short of that, like, I don't see any reason why to not let him get back on the mound. And I'm somebody who thinks if the Dodgers make it to the World Series, if it is a closeout game, game 5, game 6, game 7, and the Dodgers are going to potentially run out of pitchers, which according to Dave Roberts, they would have today if he had made certain decisions, I would go to Ohtani for an inning to finish a game. But to John's point, Blake, do you think they should have him focus on only being a DH or let him try and get back on the mound?
No, I would have him try and go back on the mound, because worst case scenario, it doesn't work out and then he's only a DH. But best case scenario is you still have the possibility of adding an ace to your rotation. I think a lot of people haven't seen Ohtani actually pitch yet, because he was with the Angels for 6 years, never played in significant games with them or anything. But he was a top 5, top 10 pitcher in baseball at the time. And if there's a possibility you add that to your rotation, you're going to take that chance.
Yeah. Here's a question from Dodger Fan 22, who's watching us on Twitter. We don't get a majority of our questions, I feel like, tend to come from YouTube. So Dodger Fan, we appreciate this one. Says, any update on Tyler Glasnow? Will he need off-season surgery? So Glasnow briefly spoke with us when I was there for the NLDS. I haven't actually fully transcribed his interview yet, but basically said he didn't have a whole lot more information about his injury. He was getting a little bit better. He imagined he would have another scan. I would have guessed that that's an MRI at some point here soon during maybe not necessarily off season, but within the next couple weeks or so. So still doesn't know about surgery. If you ask me for my personal belief, I would be shocked if he doesn't have surgery, whether it's the off season or at some point early next year. Maybe they try a PRP type approach injection for the off season, and then he gets to spring training, maybe tries to start throwing again and see how that goes. But yeah, that's kind of the latest on Glass. And I will get an article up on him probably sometime this week. And so definitely check out Dodger Blue in the coming days for something like that. Next question's from DM24. Why aren't the Dodgers being more aggressive on the base paths and run on the Mets? I I mean, for starters, they have to get on base, right? And Ohtani is basically their running threat. Is it as simple as that, or are there other factors at play? Well, Ohtani did try stealing a base, and his streak. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. His streak was snapped.
Yeah, so that's part of it. Francisco Alvarez is one of the faster pop times in baseball. He's in the 83rd percentile, 1.92 seconds. So he's tough to run on. And then the other fact is they need guys on base, specifically Ohtani, because Ohtani and Edman are really the only guys on the team who are going to consistently steal bases. Freddie was that guy before, but as we know, like, Freddie's not going to be running too much besides for his one in the NLDS, which surprised everyone. But it's not a team that's built to steal bases to begin with. And then when Ohtani's 0 for 19 without runners on, like, it's kind of hard to steal bases when he's not getting on.
Yeah. Ray F wants to know, why was Edman not in the 9 hole today? I think Pages hit 9th, right?
Yeah, Edman has done really well versus lefties this year and throughout his career, so he tends to move up in the lineup versus a lefty, and then they move him back down versus a righty where he's been less effective, so kind of just that reason.
Yeah. All right, let's see. We have time for a few more questions, so get them in if you guys have them. Just as a reminder, if you could start it with the word question in all caps, that helps us pick it out. If you're on YouTube, Super Chat will definitely guarantee that we get to it. If not, Jeff and Anthony will be back on tomorrow night. Maybe they can answer your question if Blake and I don't have time. Caesar wants to know, what's wrong with Will Smith? Would you put him down in the batting order? We discussed Smith a little while ago, Caesar, so if you want to rewind it a little bit, you'll find the answer there. Blake and I, we're not fully opposed to maybe moving him down a spot or two, but I don't know. Then you need to figure out who's coming up and who's taking his place at that point. Michael Jack, is Smith injured? To the best of our knowledge, there has not been an injury or a concussion that Smith has suffered. So at least publicly, he's healthy. Maybe we'll find out in the offseason or spring training or something, some random point that maybe he wasn't. Jonathan Warren says, when will Decoy pitch? Which, hey, we're talking bullpen games. We're talking running out of pitchers. Maybe Decoy needs to get out there, but I would be concerned about just the way he delivers it kind of right over the heart of the plate. That might be a problem for the Dodgers.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Dodgers might have been using a decoy today when they said bullpen game and then went with Knack for it. So, yeah.
Nomo FOMO says, what's Luck's status? He okay to play in New York? So Dave Roberts said today that Gavin Lux wasn't available. He wasn't in the lineup, partly because the Dodgers are facing a lefty, also because he couldn't play defense and or really run. He was available to pinch hit, and Lux, I think, was in the on-deck circle in the bottom of the 8th, right, for Pages?
Yeah.
And so Dave Roberts said he would have used him, kind of in a high-leverage situation, a big at-bat. That was it. But then the inning ended before Pages' spot came up, and Dave said he felt at that point, leading off the bottom of the 9th, I think the Dodgers were down 7-3 at that point, that it didn't make sense to use Lux. Dave didn't say after the game whether or not he would be available for game 3 yet. That's the expectation, I guess. He has a right hip flexor injury, if you missed it. And related to that, Eric Flores wants to know, if Lux is out, are we doomed?
I mean, no, I don't think Lux is the breaking point of this team, but it gets tougher with each injury. We don't know the status of Hudson, and we've already seen they've had some injuries. They had the injury replacement with Michael Grove, which a lot of fans were happy about, but still an injury and cutting into your depth. So the Dodgers are at a very slim point where the only guys on their 40-man roster who aren't active or on the team are active or injured is Zach Lowe, Justin Wroblewski, Hunter Fiducia, James Outman. I think that might be the entire list there. So your options are pretty slim right now.
Yeah. All right, a few more. This one isn't a question, but how would you say that? Starcry G8. I'm not sure on the full pronunciation, but says, last 3 games I saw on TV, the Dodgers won. I missed today's game on TV due to work, and the Dodgers lost. I could catch the next game on TV. Speaking on behalf of our chat, they would probably appreciate it if you are able to tune in and get the Dodgers a win. So just keep no pressure, but just keep that in mind. Rod wants to know, will we see Brusdar Gratterall at some point in the postseason? I don't personally think so, but maybe there's an outside shot on the World Series if they advance. Do you leaning one way or the other?
I would be very surprised if he ends up pitching again. Like Dave Roberts didn't even say he was slightly a consideration for the NLCS. It was just a flat out no. And if that's where you're at this point, like I don't think anything's really going to change in a week, considering he'd still need to rehab and kind of build his arm up and throw. Like I just don't see it.
Yeah. One thing that Gratterall has continued to do, whether during workouts or before games, is go out and shag fly balls with the pitchers. He enjoys doing that. But yeah, actually, to your point, I can't remember seeing him doing any sort of throwing. Owen Kira wants to know, is Outman still on the roster? So he's not on the active roster, but he is on the 40-man. If there's something that happens on the position player side, then potentially Outman is coming up. And we do have clarification. It says name is pronounced Starkriders. I don't know. I feel like I'm still messing that up, but thank you for clarifying that for us. All right, let's see if I missed anything. And yes, people are telling you to call off of work next time. I think we've gotten this question a few times. Ducks K says, is CT3 out next year? I'm not 100% sure what this is referring to. If it is like contract free agent stuff, no, he still has one more season remaining, which would be next year. I don't want to get into a ton of offseason stuff, but I am curious to see what happens with Chris Taylor and if he's on the Dodgers next year.
Chris Taylor will produce at least one out next year for some team.
Yeah, there you go. Blake with the big hot take there. All right, let's end it with this one. And Blake, this is kind of combining my interest with your expertise, area, knowledge. Am I Old wants to know, what orange chicken place close to Cal State Northridge is better than Panda Express? I will add the disclaimer that Blake may try to answer this, but there is no place better with better orange chicken than Panda Express. But that being said, Blake, go ahead.
How do I remove Matt from the stage here?
Go ahead.
I'm muting him. Okay, so the best place I know of is Super Walk in Tarzana. It's really good. And then another one I like that it's not as good, but it's cheap and you get good value is Wong's Walk. And I think that's in Reseda. So yeah, it is. So they're both pretty close. And I would definitely go there over Panda every time if I had the choice. The only benefit Panda has is you can get it for $5 after a Dodger home win. Other than that, I'm probably not going to Panda.
That promotion continuing in the playoffs is surprising, and I think that's pretty cool by the Dodgers and Panda Express to have worked that out in their contract terms.
They might have been predicting a Padres NLDS win too, just like everyone else.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, I lied. We have one more question because it is food related, and as you guys know, we like to end our show with those. Rianu Keeves, that's to really focus on saying that, not Keanu Reeves. Says, do you guys like tortas? So, Blake, are you familiar with a torta?
It's like the flat bread with stuff on it, right?
Well, yeah, kind of. It's like it's not completely flat. Like it's open. It's like a sandwich. It's not like a sandwich, but it is open. Yeah, go ahead and do some Google. To answer your question, yes, I like them. Put some carnitas on them, some beans, some cheese, some salsa. I can eat a few of those pretty easily. Blake,
I thought it was the thing you told me. There's a restaurant I went to in downtown, I think it was, and you told me to get some of those.
No, I don't. I remember us having a conversation about that. I don't know what I was referring. No, I told you to go to. I told you to have a sope from King Taco.
Yeah, right. That's it. Okay, that's what I was thinking of. Not okay. I don't think I've had a torta then.
Okay, well, do your own research, and then come back to us next time we get you on a show, and you can tell us if you would eat torta. All right. I think we will end it there. Thank you, everybody. I do see the chat having fun with some of the comments tonight. We appreciate you guys joining us. We had over 1,400 people on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. This was our second live show of the day. And if you were in here for Jeff and Anthony earlier this afternoon and now Blake and I tonight, we appreciate it. If you're only able to catch one of our shows, we appreciate that. If you're watching this after the fact, thank you. If you're on podcast, please be sure to subscribe to our channel, leave us feedback, rate, review, all that good stuff. Apple, Google, Spotify. As a reminder, Jeff and Anthony will be live with you guys tomorrow night, Tuesday. It is an off day, but they are going to do a show at 7:30, kind of looking ahead to Game 3. Maybe they'll talk a little bit Clayton Kershaw. I'm not sure how much they really got into that today. As a reminder, if you are on YouTube, please be sure to hit the like button on this video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell, all that good stuff. Once again, that's Blake. I'm Matthew, and we'll see you next time.